From Anshe Sfard Beth El Emeth Congregation, it's time to take 10 minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of Parshat Yitro, the Garden of Sinai. If you look at the works of Hanoch Waxman, who writes for Yeshivat Har Etzion, he finds a fascinating theory about Sinai going green, the Garden of Sinai. What do I mean? If you look back in last week's Parshat B'Shalach, there, before the story of the attack of Amalek, the very last story before this week's Parsha is the story of Masar Merivah, the story that the Jews tested God. They asked, Hayesh Hashem Mekirbeinu Imayin, is God among us or isn't he? And as a result, God did what? God said to him, take the elders of Israel and go beyond where you are now. And go away from Refidim, from that place, and go with the elders to a place called Chorev. Chorev is that dry place that's sometimes described as Sinai, place of fire, that dry place. Chorev. In last week's Parsha, even though it wasn't clear, could easily miss it, the Jews actually, just at least the elders and Moses, they went to Sinai. And it was there that they got the water out of the rock. Yes, Moses was supposed to hit the rock. That story, this is not the famous hitting the rock story. Moshe was supposed to hit the rock. He hit the rock. Water came out. And water came at Chorev, at the dry place. Ironically, water begins to flow. Rabbi Waxman pointed out that actually the story of Chorev number 1 and the story of Chorev number 2, Sinai number 2, are very similar and parallel in a number of ways. Number 1, there is an idea of testing God. There it says that the Jews were testing God. Here it says, L'vavur nasot etchem ba'elokim. God comes to test the Jews. Both are cases of testing. One is a case where the Jews test God. Here, God tests the Jews. In both cases, there is a parting of ways. The elders go to a certain point at Sinai. Moses and Aaron, Yeshua, everyone has a different point to which they go. And so too, the story of Masar Merivah, the story of the hitting the rock, there too, the Israel, the elders of Israel, went with Moshe, and they had the privilege of seeing those waters flow. So we find these two stories have certain parallels. They also have a great contrast as well. Whereas in our story, in our parsha, the great worry is Pen Yersu Elahar Lirot. Maybe the people will get too close to God. They wanted to get too close. There in last week's parsha, it was Hayesh Hashem B'Kirbeinu Imayin. They didn't know if God was in their midst at all. Very different. People have evolved from a questioning God and his existence, or perhaps his providence over them, to a point of love of God. They're so enthusiastic, they want to go and run to God. This shows, on the one hand, its growth and development. At the same time, is also a natural vacillation. This is natural, as Rabbi Salvation explains, and others have explained. There is a dialectic. On the one hand, we want to get closer with God. On the other hand, we're afraid to get too close to God. Now, what led to this development? That in this parsha, suddenly the Jews want to get closer to God. Again, Rabbi Waxman, we thank him, comes to the rescue. And he says that it was the very fact that this very staff, Asher Yikita Bot Hayor, which Moshe used to at least through Aaron, to hit the Nile, to turn it to blood, to bring plagues and lack of water to the world. This same staff in last week's parsha was transformed into a staff of life. That actually through this very staff and the power of God, they would actually bring water, not bring blood, but bring water to the rocks, waters to a dry place, to the Chorev. And this was a symbol of the fact that God is here not only to punish, but also to give. that God is not only a God of punishment and anger and judgment, but God is also a God of love and providing and care. And through that transition, there began to develop a sense of love among the Jewish people. And through this sense of love, there was a danger that they get too enthusiastic. Chesed would get carried away, and they would burst forth into the places of Mount Sinai where they shouldn't be. What a transition, what a transformation of the Jewish people, questioning God's presence to they can't get enough. And Ritzonenu l'rodet malkeinu, as Rashi says from the Midrash, they were just desired so badly to go and see their king, so to speak. This parsha represents the idea of going from Exodus, last week's parsha, to Sinai. Exodus, all about punishment. This week, all about God giving us. That no other nation had this, where God gave them the laws. What a loving thing God did for us, to tell us what are the laws, what are the basic principles of humanity. They're not just human choices. We choose to be nice to our parents, but rather that this is a basic law of God. It's built into nature, into what's right and what's wrong. It's a great kindness that God did. And therefore, this is represented by a mountain whose original name is Chorev, sort of a dry place, or the place of the fire. But it becomes a place, as Rav Waxman pointed out, a place, ultimately, of water. We know both the sheep could not graze. Do not let the cows graze. How could you graze? I thought it was a dry place. No, this is an oasis. This is the same place where Moshe stood, on this very mountain, with his sheep as he wandered off in the desert, and he saw the burning bush. It was burning, it's fire, it's dry. It was so dry that the bush could burn. But no, now it's a place of grazing. It's a place where after the shofar blew, they would actually go up on this very mountain, the mountain of laws, and they would graze. It's a place of greenery. And therefore, on Shavuos, the Jewish people, in their infinite wisdom, Im lo b'neviim v'nei neviim. If we are not prophets, we are children of prophets. We said on Shavuos, the holiday we commemorate getting the Torah, all these rules and laws. Isn't that restrictive? People ask. And the answer is no. On Shavuos, we bring greenery. We remember the green part, the garden of Sinai. We remember the greenery of Sinai, the green Sinai, a symbol of God's love, that the laws are not there to be on top of us in an imposing sort of way, but rather the laws are there out of a sense of God providing for us and showering us with greenery and love. Ultimately, the Jews who were Yidkadashu, they were told to sanctify themselves. The rabbis say that they dunked in a mikveh. Where's the water? Where's the water of Sinai? And I could suggest that the water of Sinai is because last week the waters came out from Sinai. And when there's water from Sinai, you can go in a mikveh, you can purify yourself. And that waters of love, waters ultimately of the place of greenery. It's a symbol of God's love for us. And the Jews transition from the idea of God, the harsh God who punished the Egyptians, God who loves us, and because he loves us, he guides us on the right way. Thank you for joining us here at the Anshe Sephardi Beth Elameth congregation here in Memphis, Tennessee, for our discussion of Parshat Yitro. Join us each week for various parshiot, holiday discussions, and also various laws of Judaism as well. Thanks to Jason Lefkowitz, always for his technical assistance. And we want to remind you that we're now on HD. You need to click that button and go to 760 for high definition so you can see it even clearer. Thank you.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein. To learn more, visit ASBEE.org.